Today I've just made what I'm calling a pollinator garden bed. I'm calling it this because I've planted lots of little flowery plants that will hopefully attract more insects and that type of thing. I've got plenty of Grevilleas throughout the garden. As a matter of fact, around about 200 species, but they attract plenty of birds. But my idea for this little bed here is to plant plenty of little plants with tiny flowers that mostly attract the insects and adds a nice bit of colour to this little raised bed. So come along with me and I'll show you the process. What's in here now, I've got this Goodenia viscida, which is a little spreading and suckering Western Australian perennial. Gets beautiful little yellow flowers all the way up these stems throughout spring, all through summer. But these plants have spread all through this little garden here. So I'm going to dig clumps of them up and plant them throughout the garden in other spots, because that's the handy thing about them. That's what you can do. I've got Neil Marriott's Grevillea, Marriottii, named after him in here. So I'm going to just trim that up. That'll be nice there. What else have I got? I've got this lovely little Xanthorrhoea australis that I've grown from seed. It's still only young, but it manages to send up a flower spike or two each year. So these spears on top are a great source of pollen and whatnot for our little insects. And I often see the little eastern spinebills nibbling away because there's just so much nectar and so many little insects that hang around these flower spikes. So there's a couple of them in here. There's another little one over the other side. So first I'm digging out some of these clumps of this Goodenia viscida. It's a really good plant because you can just dig it up and plant it around in other areas of the garden, but I'm going to have to keep it well watered because we're still haven't had much rain here in Victoria. So I'll just dig out clumps just like this. I'll keep lots of this in here because I've noticed the native blue-banded bees, this is where they were hanging around a lot throughout the summer. I think they've gone into hiding now. Getting too cold for them. I'll just pull out some of that there. So I've got a really heavy clay soil in here, but I've managed to work on it over the time, and I've incorporated a bit of organic matter, such as a lot of people can't believe that I do this, but I actually incorporate some of the mulch from the tip from our local transfer station. It seems to have all the right nutrients. It does have a bit of rubbish in it as well, but look, you get that. But yeah, that tends to break down and sort of acts, you know, it sort of even loosens up the soil a bit, adds the right nutrients, as well as sometimes I throw a bit of gypsum down. But having the beds raised really helps with the drainage. So now I'm going to start the planting. I've got plenty of nice gaps here. We've got a nice even spread of the Goodenia left. So I'm going to put these other plants sort of in amongst here, so it'll creep in amongst the other, these Goodenia viscida. So I've got a couple of, well, I'll show you the plants I've got. So I've got a little white flowering and low growing Correa alba there. That flowers for many months of the year, and that'll attract the little spinebills and native bees. I've got another Correa, a Kangaroo Island form. This has a beautiful little orange flower. I've got a couple of Eremophilas. I don't know the name of this one, but this has a red flower. And this Eremophila is Eremophila latrobii, both from Russell Waite. This one has a beautiful pink to red flower. I'm putting in the centre a Corymbia ficifolia orange flowering dwarf form I got from Philip Vaughan. So it's grafted, we'll see how that goes. As a centerpiece, I've grafted this Neil Marriott hybrid, Grevillea pick of the crop. Look at that, it's flowering prolifically already. That'll bring in the birds and insects. And now these are the little prostrate Goodenias that I'll be putting in. A little yellow flower, you can see that little yellow flower there. These Goodenias can handle wet, dry, all different types of conditions. I've seen them growing in drains all over the place. And it's the same with these Scaevola. They're very tolerant in many soil conditions and they spread. They're a spreading prostrate plant, and the native bees seem to go for these little purple flowers. All right, so I'm going to start planting. So the first thing I do is set out the plants where I want them. Flowering gum, Corymbia falcifolia, that's going in the middle. I like this one to go where it gets plenty of sun. That can go right at the end there and hang over this rock. That'll be a real good bird attracting plant. Goodenia there. Correa can go here. Another Correa over the other side. Yep, right there. Eremophila. That can go here. So I want them to all sort of grow in and around and under the other plants and through the other plants and that sort of thing. And I can always prune them into shape as we go. Where am I missing one? There, that can go there too. It'll be a nice mix of yellow and purple, some red, some orange. Yeah, there we go, they've all placed out. I'll put the centerpiece in first, the flowering gum. Should be right, the center should be right here. So this will be not only a pollinator patch, as I'm calling it, it'll be full of colour, you know. So I'll do an update when, and we'll keep an eye on the progress. Geez, it's still really dry. I'm gonna have to water this in well. And I'll throw a bit of mulch on there too, just to freshen it up. Nice little, another little grass tree here. I grew a heap of these little grass trees from seed and planted them throughout the garden, but sometimes they've been a bit lost in amongst the other plants, but every now and then I notice one. All right, it's going to just sit there and creep over this section here. It's going to look awesome. Also got Peter Old's little Grevillea named after him, Grevillea oldii, just here. I didn't even notice it there before. In goes one of Russell Waite's Eremophilas. He was telling me this Latrobii that he found here, it flowers really well after rain. So yeah, it responds as soon as you get a bit of rain. It puts on a really nice flower show any time of the year, which is pretty cool. That has a really nice sort of a bell-shaped pinkish red flower, this one. I also buy some of my plants, like this one here, this Goodenia here from our local Townsend's nursery. Not only friendly family run business, the nursery is situated not far from the beach. So a lot of these plants that they grow from cuttings are all acclimatised to the salt air that we get here, because I'm not far from the beach as well. So yeah, you're not only supporting a local family run business, but you're buying plants that you're pretty well guaranteed are going to grow well down here. Okay, all plants are in the ground, so now it's time to give it a fresh layer of mulch. I'm not going to put too much on, but just a slither of mulch, a bit of cosmetics. But yeah, you can see how many plants I've got packed in here. Just a light sprinkle. There's already a fair bit of mulch on here, so a light sprinkle. It's a good quality eucalyptus mulch I've had sitting there curing for about 6 months now. So what I like to do now is just give it a little spread out by hand. You can't beat doing things by hand. Give it all a nice pat down and spread. I always make sure that there's not too much mulch around the base of your plants here, so they don't get any collar rot. There you go, settling in. Settle them in just nicely. I've noticed this Grevillea is getting a bit leggy. See how you can see it's getting pretty woody down here. So I'm just going to probably cut this whole thing back maybe a quarter, and that'll just help to reinvigorate some growth down here. And I've noticed this little, see how this little Corymbia here has got this awkward stem that comes out just here. I'm going to cut that off and just leave the 1 leader. This is just so to prevent this here, this little bit here, from splitting down the middle in the future. So that's coming off. There we go. Not easy trying to hold the camera and do this at the same time. Yeah, I'll try and, yeah, so that won't be so long and leggy, and we'll get some growth back further down along the stems. Pruning the Grevilleas like this, I also reckon, helps them live longer as well. It gives them another invigoration of life, I reckon. A little grass tree there. Now I'm just cleaning up the mess around the garden bed. Can't forget to give it all a really good soak and water in. With all these Goodenias that I've dug out, I will plant them out around the garden, but I'll put them in some water and whatnot until I get around to doing that. But yeah, these will come up really well planted throughout the garden. There we go, job's done. This will all be flowering beautifully for spring. I'll keep giving it a regular water as we've had bugger all rain lately. Feel free to like, comment and subscribe to Binchy's Garden on YouTube and get yourself out in the garden. Take it easy.